Hey, Michael J.
So, Kaldhan.
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, there's so much to get into in Standard that's, like, awesome. So kind of want to go there, but, dude, who knows how long Cascade shenanigans are even going to be legal in Modern. So we might as well, like, talk about the onslaught of Tybaltness in multiple forms from Cascade. Obviously we've been talking about the whole Tybalt's trickery to either be deterministic, to just cascade into a violent outburst into a trickery so that you can play Emrakul on turn 2 or 3 every game, and then the alternative version of playing a lot more like just like a Hypergenesis deck. But so that's already become like the best deck in Modern. So that's already just a given that the entire Modern format's wrapped around that, completely warped around it. But there's another completely busted Cascade Tybalt deck with a different Tybalt. Valki, God of Lies, is being exploited with Demonic Dread and Violent Outburst. For instance, Phil Hellmuth's most recent 4-0 Modern Prelim deck is a great example of this. It's set up kind of like a Jund deck in some ways, kind of like a Living End deck, but like you're not playing any cycling cards. You're just playing Blood Moon, Bloodbraid Elf, Magus of the Moon, Seasoned Pyromancer.
It's funny that you called this a Living End deck. I think just because it's got Demonic Dread and Violent Outburst.
And nothing that costs 2 or less.
Except
Valki.
Well, which is also not really 2 or less in this deck, right? So...
yeah, it's really, you don't play it. Well, if you have it in your hand, you can just play it because you got 4. So what you do is on turn 2, you play the Valki. Why not? Maybe you'll take a Vendilion Click or something. But then on the next turn, you cascade into Valki, and since the cascade rules are stupid, you can just play Tybalt Cosmic Deceiver. And you just have a 7-drop Planeswalker on turn 3. Or turn 2. I mean, this is a deck with 4 Simian Spirit Guides.
Yeah, it's not the best Planeswalker you could ever hit, but it's quite a bit of a mana advantage on turn 2. Right? So...
yeah, and or turn 1. I mean, you got Gemstone Cavern also.
Oh, yeah.
4 Gemstone Cavern and 4 Simian Spirit Guides. That's a lot of action. And you even have Bloodbraid Elf, too. I mean, obviously, Bloodbraid Elf misses a lot, right? Bloodbraid Elf just plays like a fair game in this deck sometimes.
Yeah.
Like half the time.
First of all, I think like when we just peruse MTGO deck lists, I love Phil Hellmuth decks a lot. I think Phil Hellmuth is putting out good work on a consistent basis. This 4-0 list right now, though, this is like the marriage of many, many different ridiculous fathers, right? So, I mean, there were all different kinds of mono Cascade decks in Standard back when Cascade was a thing in Standard, right? We had all the sort of get to 3s that always did the same thing. I think that was yours, right? Like where you could just only Blightning or Esper Charm people on 3, so you're just never doing anything goofball. I think Phil Hellmuth has got a little bit of that action here, right? So if they're not hitting Demonic Dread or Violent Outburst as their 3, it's going to be some sort of a Blood Moon, right? Like,
no, there's also Dismember and Seasoned Pyromancer, Murderous Rider. Obviously Simian Spirit Guide is the brick.
Oh, wow, that's bad. I mean, Dismember is actually kind of bad, right? Like, that's a Bloodbraid Elf for a Swords of Plowshares if I've ever seen one.
But you do have 8 Blood Moons, which is also kind of, off in a win right there.
Oh, I mean, you are rolling the dice on this. That's what I like about it, right? Like, this is so, maybe I'm just going to lock you out with my Cascade card. But obviously, you've got an 8-pack of the Demonic Dread and Violent Outburst portion, which is just only going to produce some kind of a Tybalt there, like 100 drop and with 1,000 starting loyalty on turn 2 or 3.
One more big piece of tech here that we should be seeing everywhere, but is certainly fantastic here, is Mindbreak Trap as a 4-of. You see, Mindbreak Trap is it's a 0-cost exile any number of target spells, right? It's kind of like an anti-storm card, right? But it's also, as it turns out, let's see, so if your first card is Violent Outburst, and your second card is Tybalt's Trickery, that would make Emrakul your 3rd card. You can Mindbreak Trap Emrakul, even though it can't be countered, it can be exiled. And even though it has protection from colored spells, it doesn't while it's on the stack. So you can Mindbreak Trap Emrakul if they violent outburst into trickery. You can't do it if they hardcast Emrakul, but you also have a lot of time to do something else in those, 15 turns leading up to that.
So this is just every piece of technology in one deck. Like, you can't really cast the Mindbreak Trap, right?
You can't do it.
But the thing is,
Valki catalyze them, but that's a hard way to do it.
The Mindbreak Trap is very surgical, right? It's really just there
Super surgical.
They're like for now we have entered stage 3. Like, it's only there for that. I mean, but I think
it doesn't even work in the mirror, because if they outburst into Valki, that's only 2.
It's only 2 spells, yeah.
Yeah, it's super surgical, but that's okay because it is really good against the 2 different iterations of the best deck of the de facto defining deck of the format.
I mean, I could totally see when paper tournaments come back, right? I could totally see playing that Mindbreak Trap like in all kinds of decks that can't cast it, like a red deck or something. One of those Plague Rats decks. You can you just play it in those decks, and it doesn't have it doesn't have a very wide utility, but it just beats the only, if it's your plan A versus all their non-basic lands, you probably got them, right? It's just this portion of their deck that's going to get you.
Remember, you do have 4 Seasoned Pyromancer and 4 Gemstone Cavern. So if you get like Mindbreak Trap flooded, where you're like, well, I got to keep it because my hand's terrible, but I do have 4 Mindbreak Traps. So we're just going to have to sit and hang out for a long time. Well, if you got a Seasoned Pyromancer, you can, put it to use. It's something you got going for you.
That's actually a really interesting point. I think that in matchups where you bring the Mindbreak Trap in, I think you'd be, really highly inclined to keep any hand that has the Mindbreak Trap, no matter how bad the rest of it was.
Oh, yeah.
Or hard mulligan into the Mindbreak Trap. I just remember... This was a heartbreaker for me personally, right? So it was a few years ago. I missed top 8 of a Legacy Open where I was playing Blue-Red Delver against Goblin Charbelcher, like the 1 or 2 land deck. And I had the option was keep a hand that had Force of Will but no lands, or mulligan, right? And I mulliganed and I ended up losing. And the consensus afterwards was like, nah, just keep it. Because even though you can't make any plays, you probably just Mind Twisted them for 7 with your Force of Will. So you're going to have 7 turns to rebuild your hand. And I think applying that logic to 2021, I would keep 7 cards with Mindbreak Trap, no lands. I would do it.
The one thing you got to watch out for is if they're just playing some kind of the way that they have these all-in builds, like for instance, BNR's 5-0 list is just 4 Violent Outburst, 4 Emrakul, 1 Trickery. So basically the same deck we talked about before. We're going with 4 Emrakuls instead of 3. So the 51 land, however, the 51 land has enough action in it that if you just sit around, in this case, you're not really doing a whole lot with this, but you do have a Field of the Dead plan eventually. And you do have the ability to ramp out Emrakul at least a little bit ahead of schedule with, some of the Castle Garenbrig action. And then you have a Valakut plan. And then even more importantly, they have a transformational sideboard. So if you're too slow, you sideboarded in and you kept a no-land hand just because it had Mindbreak Trap. What are you going to do if on turn 3 they just play Dryad of the Ilsean Grove, and then you realize, oh shoot, they just have 4 Primeval Titans and 4 Summoners packs in this deck now? I
mean, you gotta take your medicine, right? The problem is, I don't know. Is that a Soul Read situation? Do you just always bring in the Titan game against beatdown decks? If you think that they have Mindbreak Trap technology? Actually, Titans are actually very good against kind of mono-directional beatdown decks in Modern. Maybe.
Remember, you have 2 Radiant Fountains in your main deck anyway, and you have a Colony Garden, if it comes to that.
Oh, sure. I mean, Especially if you've got traps of your own. I mean, obviously they're different traps. I don't know. I think you should do it. Makes sense to me now.
Yeah, and one thing I did want to bring up that's actually like just a really, really, really smart advancement is the use of 3 Mystic Sanctuaries. When your deck is all in on the 1 Tybalt's Trickery, having the ability to Mystic Sanctuary your Tybalt's Trickery back on top of your deck in case it gets countered or thought seized. And obviously thought seized, hopefully it's just in your deck somewhere, right? But like, you can also Mystic Sanctuary your Violent Outburst back on top of your deck. So having the ability to turn all of these million like Flooded Strands and Scalding Tarns and Polluted Deltas, like there's so many fetch lands in this deck, right? There's even Teleria West if it comes to that. But you have so many fetch lands, so the ability to convert your fetch lands into just every fetch land for the next 3 turns in a row is another shot at Violent Outburst.
I mean, that's such an amazing plan, right? Like,
or Tybalt's Trickery. Well, the problem, you remember, if they just counter the Trickery, it's not like putting the Trickery back on top does everything you need, right? Because you do actually need to also have an Outburst. So it actually takes 2. You have to sanctuary the Outburst and the Trickery, draw the Outburst, and then hit the Trickery. And that's part of the reason why I personally would play 4 Sanctuaries. But you do have Teleria West and Vesuva, so you do have the option to keep going.
I was thinking about this for a sec. So if you are if you're playing against a Thoughtseize deck, getting back a Violent Outburst type card, that seems pretty reasonable to me, right?
That's awesome.
Okay, that's awesome. But if you're playing against a Counterspell deck, they are very apt to counter Tybalt's Trickery, not counter the Cascade card, right? So getting back if you're a 1 Trickery deck, this is much more awkward. Right?
It's not the worst though, because at the end of the day, 1, you could draw another Outburst, and 2, you've got a bazillion fetch lands. So it takes 2 of them to set up the combo again, but that's not bad. If you have nothing else and you just go off on turn 3 and they counter it, you can still just go off again on turn 5.
Yeah, so the play there is to just cast your whatever Cascade card you draw or whatever, right? And then cast it, and then whatever the timing is convenient, right? Like whether you did it right after you drew your fetch land, or in whatever fashion is necessary to get the Tybalt's Trickery on top of your library. They now have to be in a situation where they can stop the Trickery again, right? The problem with this is that if it were a situation where they could just be where the interplay was between their Counterspell and the Cascade card, you could just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. If you just have more fetch lands you're drawing, right? Like any 4 fetch lands that can get an island puts you in a position to be able to do this, right? Which is going to be overwhelmingly bad for most control decks. However, if you're playing against a deck that can actually counterspell Tybalt's Trickery, you actually you need 2 pieces each time, right? You need your own catalyst.
You could have you could have a Scalding Tarn and a Flooded Strand. You do need 2 fetch lands though, because what you can do is you just fetch, get the Radiant Fountain, put the Outburst on top of your deck, draw it for the turn, fetch again, this time get the Trickery, and it doesn't cost you any mana, you're just putting it on top, and then you Outburst. So you actually just do it by surprise. Like on turn 3, they don't even necessarily know you have this plan. On turn 3, you try to go off, they countered it. On turn 4, you wait till their end step, and then you do the first reset, untap, draw, get the Trickery reset, go off again.
Yeah, I buy that. But that still takes more resources, right? You need 2 fetch lands in that case, and you can't do it all in one turn. Like you need to kind of stagger step it.
Totally.
But
well, you can do it all. You can do it all in one turn if you already have a fetch. So on turn 4, you don't actually have to go get you don't have to go get the Outburst. You can wait until your 5th turn, get the Outburst on your upkeep, draw it for the turn, and then just play either the Sanctuary or a fetch land. So you can do it all in one turn on turn 5, but you do have to have a fetch land sitting in play uncracked to do it all in one turn. So either way, obviously, it's much better against Thoughtseize than Permission.
And it's super exciting in Solid Seas, but this whole conversation that we've had has led me to believe that you should absolutely positively be playing 4 copies of that card. How could you not?
I think so.
Like, the sequence that we just described requires you to use 2 fetches to do it once. You can't even do it a second time if you only have 3 copies in your deck.
No, totally. I mean, you can with Clary West and the Super, but you can't fetch it up the same way. I think 4 is... I would want 4. I would want 4.
It's a low cost, yeah.
So the Modern's definitely all cascaded out, but what about the Standard, man? What do you like in Standard now, thanks to Kaldheim?
2 words, man. 2 words. Goldspan Dragon.
Dude, I love it. Goldspan Dragon's one of my big 3 from the set. I think it's one of the 3 best cards.
I think, at least for the first week's worth of results, this is far and away the most impressive showing that I've seen from I'm just going to use qualifying terms, like a fair creature. This isn't some sort of an Uro situation. This is just a guy that you could put into decks, and its ability to have contributed across all 5 colors is unbelievable in the first week.
So it initially bust on the scene with Counter Dragon, this blue-red snow deck using Disdainful Stroke, Negate, Essence Scatter, sometimes Saw It Coming. And what these all have in common is that they can be counterspells for 2 mana, which is convenient because when you play Goldspan Dragon on turn 5 and get in there, if your opponent tries to target the dragon with a spot removal spell, you'll immediately get a treasure counter, and the treasure produces 2 mana, and that 2 mana can be used to protect the dragon. And that's the whole thing. That's just the real big play, and beyond that, you're playing a bunch of good blue and red cards.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That bust out on the scene and kind of set the pace, but the format has picked up to include Goldspan Dragon in Boros aggro decks, with lots of Showdown of the Skalds, which, by the way, I think Showdown of the Skalds has proven itself one of the top 3 cards as well. For instance, Ruji's 5-0 list from the most recent league, Usher of the Fallen, Seasoned Hollowblade, Selfless Savior. This is Luminarch Aspirant. This is basically a red aggro deck, except it's more white than red because red doesn't have very good creatures right now. Except you do get to play Bone Crusher Giant and Goldspan Dragon, and that is a really big draw. And you also obviously have Shatterskull Smashing and Showdown of the Skalds and Embercleave, so you're just playing unreal card quality in your aggressive deck, but with the dragon at the top of the curve. And you don't even care that much about the treasure here. You're just kind of going. But
yeah, it's funny. This isn't that much of a Goldspan Dragon deck as so much as a deck that happens to have Goldspan Dragon. And I'm not taking anything away from Ryuji's 5-0 list because I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of good cards in this deck. It's weird to me because it doesn't exploit any of the directions that I think Kaldheim was bringing to the table in a really hard way. Unless you want to talk about Showdown of the Skalds, which you said was one of your top 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. This deck actually is also doing a pretty good job of Usher of the Fallen. I think that when you can throw a Maul of the Skyclaves on an Usher of the Fallen, you're kind of doing something. Particularly when you have the Selfless Savior to be able to actually protect it. And it's not like Halvar, God of Battle, is bad with Maul of the Skyclaves either. But the Showdown of Skalds is the real big story. And it's hard because the Goldspan Dragon, there's so many Goldspan Dragon decks we could talk about, but there's also so many Showdown of the Skald decks we could talk about. Goldspan Dragon was showing up in Genesis Ultimatum. It was showing up in Rakdos aggro. It was showing up in Mono Red aggro. But
yeah, I want to talk about all those decks, actually.
Okay, but the thing is that Showdown of the Skalds is showing up in a million decks too. So the way I see it, Showdown of the Skalds is a better escape to the wilds. And it gives you a burst of cards for cheaper and a very powerful board presence over the next 2 turns. It's so powerful that we're going to consistently see Showdown of the Skalds splashed in decks. We're going to see red-green decks that splash white for Showdown, And we're going to see blue-white decks that are splashing red for Showdown. It's just so powerful and has so many synergies with so many things. But we'll see more of that as we continue our kind of, meandering through the metagame.
Let's talk about Showdown to the Skalds play patterns for a second. If you think this is going to be so important, right? I remember when I first was playing the 5 casting cost version in, teamer decks, right? Decks that primarily had Beanstalk Giants in them, for example. One of the things that I learned very quickly was that I typically didn't want to tap out for Escape to the Wilds on the first turn that I could, right? So if I played my 5th land and cast it, I was actually losing a lot of value by doing that, right? Because of the ability to play an extra land off of that card, I could often just get 2 lands off of it right there in that turn. But if I did it, kind of as fast as I could on curve, I would just consistently lose value, right? So Showdown to the Skalds is different than that, right? Because you don't get the ability to play an extra land, but it's cheaper, right? So you have this greater incentive to play it early.
Well, also, you want to play it with more cards in your hand because when you actually play it, you get a chance to spam a ton of +1/+1 counters all over the place. If you wait until you're out, you'll get a few counters, but what you really want to do is try to find that sweet spot where you've played out the rush as much as you can, and then but at the same time, you have the biggest turn you possibly can. Because every spell you play is another free +1/+1 counter. That's just so huge. So why not? Like, if you're going to... Okay, let's say you have a bunch of cards in your hand and Showdown to the Skalds. If you play the bunch of cards first, then Showdown, then whatever you draw off the Showdown, you're only getting counters from the Showdown cards. But if you play Showdown first, if you still have enough mana to play everything, and remember, you do have 2 turns to do it, if you still have enough mana to play everything, you just get a lot more +1/+1 counters because all those Usher the Fallens and Selfless Saviors, each one gives you an extra +1/+1 counter wherever you want.
So there's a high incentive. I mean, obviously this is shown off by Ryuji's deck to play like cheap cards, like Usher the Fallen costs 1, Selfless Savior costs 1. Like the more cheap cards you can just jam in after you've cast Showdown to the Skalds is giving you additional +1/+1 counters.
Oh yeah, but that's also part of the reason why Goldspan Dragon quietly has extra value. Whenever it attacks, it's giving you treasure. It's not just in defense.
Nah.
So when you're attacking, you can build up a few treasure counters so that you can get actually a really big Showdown turn. And you get to Showdown +1/+1 counters whenever you cast a spell, however you cast it. So even cards you stole with Robber of the Rich still counts.
I like it.
And then one sideboard card that's kind of worth calling out here is Cosmos Elixir. Cosmos Elixir, on the surface, it seems like it could be like for a control deck, right? And I think you can use this as a control card, particularly as a sideboard card. But I actually think it's got a deceptive amount of value as a sideboard card for mid-rangey decks who want to be able to fight on the extremes. If you're playing against mono-red, 2 life a turn is great, right? For 0 mana, if you can, as long as you can, hold things off. Not always, it depends, right? Like, the more Lava Spike they are, the better.
Kind of, right? Like, it's great only so long, because once you get to, 21 plus life, you're getting them the other way.
Which is also great.
The problem is, once you get to 21 plus life, the game is just going to be so different.
I actually think this is going to have applications in more powerful formats, too, and in particular where Karn the Great Creator can go get it. Your ability to just lock out a Lava Spike deck will at the same time just have a personal Howling Mine against control decks and ramp decks and combo decks. And that's its main use here, is that against control and ramp, you can just drop it and start getting extra cards so quickly.
Yeah, I can totally see this as being just like a...
Remember, it's with haste. It's not at the beginning of your turn. As soon as you play it, you get to draw a card.
Yeah, this is just like the Immortal Sun... too cheaper when you're playing against control decks, right?
In some ways, yeah.
It'll take a second to trigger, right? Are there any easy ways to be at 21 plus life against control in this deck to start?
No, not in this deck.
There's certainly ways to be lower, right?
And there will be plenty of ways in some decks, but even if you take one turn off where you gain 2 life, you're already making progress. But the point is that between Cosmos Elixir and Raydan, God of the Worthy, this deck actually has a deceptively potent ability to lock out aggro. Remember, Raydan reduces, like, when you actually you're playing it for the backside, so that your opponent can't really target you very easily, but more importantly, every source of damage is reduced by 1, which includes to your creatures. Like, once you drop Valkmira, Protector's Shield, you're just going to dominate the creature combat against a red deck.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to kind of absorb this a little bit. Like, this is really reminiscent of... Do you remember that Red-White Angels deck Brad Nelson played to the top 8 of, I think it was a Grand Prix New York or New Jersey a few years ago? I didn't appreciate it when I looked at it on paper, but then when I started playing it at FNMs and MTGO back then, I really started to see how the match... Like, it fit into... Like, it was a different deck in so many different matchups, right? Like, I think you look at a red deck and you're like, typically a standard red deck doesn't have that many tools. And you're like, all right, I just played the same kind of game against everybody, and that game's really good sometimes and it's challenging some other times. It seems to me that this Boros deck by Ryuji is like literally, depending on who you're sitting against, you're presenting not just slightly different configuration of your 75. You're like literally a deck of different character, right? Like, I'm a beatdown deck. I'm a grinding deck. This deck I grind with card.
A tempo deck.
Yeah, like, I'm an equipment deck.
Let's compare this to the mono red deck that Elialo 5-0'd with, which I think is pretty representative of the new style of mono red, including 4 Goldspan Dragon. So this deck, its new additions, in addition to the Dragon, it's got 4 Frostbite, which you were definitely right on about, and then something we're seeing a lot of. Obviously, Shock isn't new, but the amount of shocks that people are playing is huge. It's definitely looking like one of those formats where the extra tempo is just so important. And then 4 Faceless Haven. No surprise there, particularly if you're going to play enough land to actually be able to go all the way up to Goldspan Dragon. And here's a nice one, Magda Brazen Outlaw. Magda does a few things. First of all, you got a lot of dwarves.
A lot of dwarves here.
You got a lot of dwarves. Rimrock Knight, Torbrand, Thrain of Redfell, and then Magda itself is relevant because when it becomes tapped, you still get a treasure, which lets you ramp. It means that if you play Magda on turn 2 and attack, it's implied that you have the dragon a turn ahead of schedule if you want. And in fact, you can actually play Rimrock Knight on 2, and then Magda on 3, attack with the knight right out the gate, and then on turn 4, you have the dragon. What's more, you've got enough dwarves, including the Faceless Havens, that you can actually realistically get to 5 treasure, particularly since you might actually just play a Goldspan Dragon natural, attack with it, get a treasure, your opponent kills it, maybe you get another treasure, and then when you drop Magda and then immediately attack with some dwarves, maybe you get 3 more treasure and just go get another Goldspan Dragon.
So I think that it's actually totally reasonable if you were playing this mono red beatdown deck that you would just have like multiple copies of Goldspan Dragon in play, right? However you got the first one, you have so much treasure making stuff, right? The stuff from Magda making treasures, so you can actually do that kind of sacrifice 5 treasures thing, and just it's super convenient that Goldspan Dragon is in fact a dragon, which is one of the things you can potentially search for. And then rock and roll.
Yeah. The sheer number of dwarves, I think is just very reasonable. In particular, once you have one dragon, its ability to help parlay you into a second dragon is like, it's pretty quick, And so it's just kind of a nice dimension to add, to say nothing of just Magda being a relatively efficient threat from a purely damage perspective. Because you get a little bit of virtual haste, so to speak, from whatever dwarves you already had, hitting for 1 harder that turn. So we had mentioned, we were talking about Boros, and then obviously switched to mono red, but there's also some mono white that's doing all right, partially on the strength of just getting the use of Usher of the Fallen, and interestingly, Halvar, God of Battle. What do you think about Halvar as a 4-of in Roquefort's 5-0 list? Like, that's kind of a wild twist, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, here's a deck that's got 24 lands, just like actual 24 land. And I think you want to do something with the high end of it. So playing a 4-drop that, obviously has some other side capability is well within thing that you might want to be able to do. And then, obviously, it's got some equipment. I mean, it's got Halvar himself is equipment, right? But then you've also got Maul of the Skyclaves, which is, these guys all kind of work together.
And part of the combo here, of course, is that if you actually get Halvar's equipment side attached to a Skyclave apparition, you're a little bit doing it, right? And it's not too bad on Selfless Savior either, or Alseid of Life's Bounty.
No.
Like that recursive, like you can kind of just create, it's almost like a green-white, green-white back in the day, making it the really complicated board state. But we were actually, we were going to talk about a few other Goldspan Dragon decks, and I'm wondering, is your preference the Boros or mono red, or what about this red-green style?
So the red-green style, there's just 3 questions there, right? In the dark, I think that I would go with either the Teamer or the blue-red as being the strongest Goldspan Dragon color combination. One of the things I liked about it, there's so many different Goldspan Dragon color combinations. I like the mono-red. I think the mono-red is a little romantic, but I still like it. The Boros, we haven't talked about that. We talked about the other version of Boros, right, with the Saga. But
Boros without the Saga is like a missed opportunity to play the Saga.
Well, as opposed to a Goldspan Dragon deck, right? So I think that there's some cool synergy there. For sake of argument, even El Yalo's mono red deck, I think it's worth pointing out that Rimrock Knight targets, right? So that targets your Goldspan Dragon. You actually just get power.
Great point.
Set up a situation where you could just sacrifice. It's like free, right? You're like, throw a mana at the Goldspan Dragon, make a treasure, tap the treasure to make a Rimrock Knight. You haven't lost anything. All you did was gain a bunch of power on your Goldspan Dragon if you do that. And now you have this other creature that, obviously could potentially be getting buffed by Magda or, Torbrand for that matter, right? Like this deck has got like a lot of fast action. And I do think it's kind of funny if you've got multiple Goldspan Dragons in play in a mono red deck, the game's not going to take very long. But as for the red-green, I think that red-green is probably the least good of the various aggro color combinations. And
it's kind of, even though it's like adventures, it's really actually Naya because you get to splash the Showdown of the Skalds. But
yeah, but the thing is that it's also a very natural fit, if that makes any sense. Like, red-green decks always play like some sort of Sarkhan Planeswalker at 5 or like Stormbreath Dragon, like a 5 casting cost, RR3, 4/4 flyer with haste, or the equivalent, is just so. That's just like their thing, right? That's their family recipe. So I think it makes sense here. Also, it's really good both coming and going with the Great Henge, right? So it's not the best Great Henge sequence, right? So any deck with Lovestruck Beasts into Great Henges, obviously that's kind of the dream if you're going for that. But, you've got this thing which is like a combination of, 2 different ways to make extra mana, 2 different ways to get extra power that are coming and going. Also, it's not for nothing. If you just have a Goldspan Dragon in play, the implication that you could play a Great Henge, which is normally so much more expensive, is just right there for you.
Right. Not only the 4 power, but the extra treasure to kind of get you over the hump.
Yeah. So I think like I think it's maybe one of the strategies that might get there in the longer term, but it seems so much less focused to me, right? If you look at Gracias Portanto's 5-0 list, for example, here's this deck that's got like the Great Henge and Embercleave and Goldspan Dragon, but also like all these other things going on. Like, hey, if you're a Questing Beast deck, is it really that much better for you to have like 5 casting cost 4 power creatures with haste instead of just a 4th copy? I understand it's legendary, but that seems like a little off to me. I mean, I think that like the whole Brushfire Elemental part of this deck, it's just a little bit off here, you know? What do you think?
I think not playing Showdown of the Skalds is a leak.
But to be fair, it's week 1. There's a lot of stuff that is going to be a little bit different soon.
Yeah, and I get you've always, I know you want to be in for just 2 colors, a little more consistency. I think you're just going to find that Showdown of the Skalds is kind of a messed up Magic card. But there's if we jump back a few days to the Standard Challenge on the 1st. I think it actually does a great job of encapsulating a couple other decks from the metagame that are kind of like just such a brand new world, it's almost like a post-rotation world, even though it's not even a rotation. The set has just been so impactful. And the first one I wanted to actually ask about was Kelp Master P's 3rd place list from the challenge. It's a mono blue list that screams to me Michael J. Flores.
This deck is... I mean, I think it's just a deck after both of our hearts. I mean, this is a 4X Cosima God of the Voyage deck. I mean, that was a card that you were very high on a few weeks ago when we were talking about it.
An Ascended Spirit was your personal,
This deck seems like... If there were a strategy that was like, all right, I'm going to, in the dark, pick something new that's going to be the metagame breaker, it would for sure be this. Every single format where, like, aggro control is one of the best decks, it can be, like, a fairies, some kind of deck and just knock everything on its side. If we're talking about a situation where people are just all about dropping 5 casting cost hasters, and that like the whole bet when you're playing with Goldspan Dragon is interaction with the Goldspan Dragon is potentially profitable for you if it actually already resolves. I mean, the world is different when people have cards like Essence Scatter and Neutralize, right? Like, you just don't...
Well, Voracious Great Shark is actually kind of dope right now, too. The fact that you end up in these spots where you can just actually keep the Great Shark up, and that's to say nothing of some situation where you actually bounce it or whatever, but just Voracious Great Shark as an answer to the Dragon is pretty exciting, right? I mean, obviously, you don't always have it on time, but, like, if you can swing it, it's such a great dimension.
Yeah, because Goldspan Dragon only triggers if it's the target of a spell, right?
Well, and it doesn't, it doesn't count if it's on the stack. Like, its ability only happens if it's in play, if it's on the battlefield.
So, I think that besides which, this is a 5/4 flash creature. So even if you were on the wrong end of some versions of the Goldspan Dragon, Voracious Great Shark's actually pretty good at racing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a turn faster in the abstract. And then not for nothing, like, one of the reasons that Goldspan Dragon is so profitable in some of these decks is that, if you're at 5 mana or if you're at 75 mana, right, it's the top of the curve for a lot of these decks. If the games go a little long, Shark Typhoon just outclasses the Dragon.
This is also just such an excellent Gadwick the Wizen deck for tapping. Let alone, the fact that you have 28 mana plus 4 Frost Augurs and 4 Cosimas, giving you even more looks for land. But you can Gadwick hard, draw a lot of cards, but your ability to actually just cast spells. You just cast Brazen Borrower, tap something down, cast Frost Augur, tap down the blocker, and just get in there with your Great Shark. I mean, pretty dope.
This is actually just my favorite deck of the week. I think, like, it might be light on Gadwicks, at least in 75, right? I could totally imagine playing more copies of Gadwick in the sideboard if you don't want to play the full 4 main deck.
Okay.
I mean, you were many times a 4X Gadwick guy, right?
Yeah, I just think part of it is that you're drawing cards now from Cosima, and you're drawing cards from Frostdogger, and Icebreaker Kraken has demands of its own, and Shark Typhoon's a lot to sink into, and you're attacking with Faceless Havens, and you've actually got Ascendant Spirit that you want to level up. So I think you just end up in a spot where you just have a lot of ways to spend your mana compared to what you used to. You know, you have a lot of.
I agree.
This wasn't the only big monocolor deck though. Ganita's list actually reminded me of a. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to move on yet. I just want to actually talk about. We talked about Ascended Spirit a little bit in a previous episode, but I do want to talk about Frostdogger. One of the things that makes this deck at all is that you have the situation where you have, ways to interact with people on turn 2, right? So you've got Essence Scatter in the main deck, you've got Negate in the sideboard. And again, this is like a week 1 deck, so it's possible there be additional ways you want to interact with people in a meaningful way on turn 2. But the reason that you can get away with it, or I mean, even Brazen Bar, or even petty thefting people on turn 2 to undo their play, is that you can start the game on turn 1, and you've got Ascendant Spirit and Frostdogger, and you don't.
They're both fantastic in this deck too.
Yeah, I think Frostdogger is so good. It's like scary how good this card is. It's only like 1 toughness.
Well, if you're playing 38 snow cards.
Yeah, it's 1 toughness smaller than an Omen Speaker, but for 50% of the casting cost, this actually slows down a lot of things people might be playing on the first turn, or at least makes them think twice about doing something. Also, if somebody has a 3/1 or something, that's not a bad trade, especially if you can get a tap or 2 out of it. But in the mid game, this is just absurd, right? You're just all right.
Well, this is just the best Jushi Apprentice ever, right?
It's unbelievable, right? You don't always hit, but you hit more than half the time for 1 mana, and it was 1 mana to come out. You can have multiple copies in play. Besides which, you're just getting your game going on turn 1. I think the devil's bargain that the color blue made with the great Richard Garfield way back when was hey, we'll do ridiculous stuff, but we'll at least be slow to start. Nah, they're not slow to start.
That makes me think the Threnody Singer is also just the type of sideboard card I know you love so much.
Yeah, of course.
The ability to thwart an aggro deck with this 1/3 flash for 2 that also, when it comes down, shrinks something for the turn. It's just such a powerful tactical weapon.
Oh, yeah.
If what you really want is tempo.
If they've got a 2/1 and a 3/1 or something, you can put the Frostdogger in front of their 3/1, play the Singer, reduce the 3/1 so the Frostdogger wins the fight, and then the Singer just kills the other guy. It's just very clean. And they're in trouble. I think this deck it's just no reservation. This is my favorite deck of the week. I'm really curious to see how good Cosima is going to be, because it's I know it's the one that you like the best, but it's a little different.
Well, sort of
the deck.
Yeah, it's the card I like in this deck the best. I still think that Binding the Old Gods, Showdown of the Skalds, and Goldspan Dragon are the top 3 cards of the set. But Cosima is Cosima's also just already been so great in powered formats. The interaction between Cosima and fetch lands is just its tireless tracker kicked up a notch.
Yeah. How cool is it that the Omen Keel... It's actually just works so nicely with the fact that this deck has so many just super cheap guys. You just play the Omen Keel, and then you're just all right, I'm going to play a 1-drop and still have mana open for an interactive card. It's... Especially if that interactive card could be Mystical Dispute, right? How dumb is that?
It's great. It's powerful.
So, anyway, additional monocolor deck you want to talk about.
Yeah, Ganita's 5th place list is a mono-white deck that reminds me of the kind of mono-white deck you've built 10 different times.
Oh, I love this one.
I know, I knew you would. So this is the type of big mono-white that's just loaded with big tap-out sweepers and control the board with powerful plays, right? So your card advantage, despite the fact that you're mono white, you have a surprising amount of card advantage. You've got Maze Mind Tome, which is obviously extra cards. You've got The Birth of Meletus, Elspeth Conquers Death, Skyclave Apparition, Kenby, Legion Angel is the full 4-for-1 in this deck, Ugin, Salmstim Uracum. This is a deck, even a Mary's Call, it's so much card advantage for a mono white deck.
It's really deceptive.
And then you're controlling even the Skyclave Relic is actually kind of sweet, because even though early on you're going to want to just play it out, part of the reason to use Skyclave Relic, by the way, in this deck is the Indestructible is such a good combo with the Ondu Inversion, which is ×4 in this deck. Destroy all non-land permanents.
Oh yeah,
well,
I think that's like one of the main things that you do in this deck, right? Like, because if you Relic typically costs 3, but if you kick it, it costs 6. But now you have 3 relics, right? So your implication is to have 10 mana the next turn.
Yeah, but also it's just the fact that it's indestructible. Like, being able to just keep going, that also matters, And part of the reason you want 10 mana anyway is that you want to figure out how you're actually going to fuel all these Crawling Barrens and Castle Ardenvales. Like, you got stuff to use with your mana. And even though the deck has tons of 8s, right? Like, you got Amaria's Call is 7, Doomscar's 5, Ondu Inversion at 8, Stormheim Unleashed often 7 or 8, the Ugins are 8. But this is a deck with a Search for Glory, pulling it all together, but often going and getting Ugin or just more, the Elspeth Conquers Death. But despite all these cards, because of the fact that Doomscar can be played on a discount, and Amaria's Call and Ondu Inversion can be played as land, and Search for Glory can go get land. Mazemind Tome obviously can help you filter early on, and the Relic produces mana. The Birth of Meletis gives you mana. This is actually a deck that, despite having 38 mana sources, if you count Simulacrum, it's only got 20 actual land, and its 20 land includes 2 Castle Ardenvale, 3 Crawling Baron, 2 Faceless Haven, 3 Radiant Fountain. So it actually 10 of its 20 land produce business as it is. That's like a crazy amount of extra utility and options you're getting all of the time from just how few cards in your deck don't also give you a secondary advantage.
Patrick, I love this deck. It's probably my second favorite deck of the week. However, I think it's pretty badly misbuilt.
What is it you would do different?
I think it's 15 cards shy.
Okay.
Or like 20 cards shy, whatever.
20 cards, yeah. Yeah, and some of those are free, right? Like 1 Elspeth Conquers Death, 1 Mazemind Tome, 1 Ugin. I would put the 2nd Legion Angel in the deck.
That's actually exactly the stuff that I would have done.
Right, and then you get an extra, call it 8 land. That's 12.
But maybe
an extra Search for Glory is 13.
How about you play multiple extra Search for Glorious and then just play multiple Yorions in the main deck? Right? Pick your path.
That sounds okay. I like that. That sounds pretty good.
I actually, besides just adding more Castle Ardenvales and stuff, which I would obviously do if I were making this a full-on Yorion deck, I just think that having more snow-covered plains is actually good. If you're going to be a Search for Glory deck, like, it just increases how much value you're getting. Like, Search for Glory, when it's like, full-on, I gained 3 life and then I got whatever solution I needed for the next turn, it's a pretty powerful combination.
Sure. People aren't really doing it yet, but one of the things I'm still excited about doing with the Search for Glory is going and finding a one-of copy of Asika, a God of the Trees, or God of the Tree. Because if you got only 1 Asika in your deck, then all the rest of the creatures and planeswalkers in your deck can just be like super expensive, incredible bombs like Koma or Ugin or whatever. And then you can just go find it with like Mythos of Bracco, Search for Glory. But who knows? That hasn't been invented yet. There is kind of a wild new, completely different other kind of deck that's made possible because of the new influx of changelings. Hippo X Dragon's 6th place adventure deck features 4 masked vandals, and in an effort to help pull together the party, because normally your black-green deck, I guess it's technically 5-color Abzan, but like you don't have as good of a spread as you would like of all the different types. You've got Tajuru Paragon, who's kind of a virtual changeling in this deck anyway, and you've got Masked Vandal. And part of what you're trying to do here is you're trying to make your Archpriest of Iona awesome, but Archpriest of Iona is also kind of just trying to be part of the Tron. You see, Archpriest of Iona is a cleric, an acquisitions expert, which gets powered up by your changelings. is bringing Rogue to the table, and Harold, King of Skemfar, who can find rogues. I mean, not rogues, changelings, and the Tajir Paragon.
Well, some of those are rogues then.
Yep, and Harold is a warrior. So you've got warrior and the rogue synergies and cleric, and part of what you're actually trying to do here is you're actually trying to get the full Tron all the way. And that's because you've got two giant payoffs. The first of which is Tazri, Beacon of Unity, who Tazri, first of all, in this deck, very quickly is just a Tarmogoyf of sorts, where you're paying 2 mana for a 4/6.
Yeah, I feel like this is the first freaking, like, let's go Tazri deck. I mean, I know people have tried it a little bit, but this is like, Tazri is front and center to me in this deck.
And then the fact that you can then spend 4 mana to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and put 2 more creatures into play, you can just so quickly. It's like
Tasigur.
Like Tasigur, except instead of 4 mana to draw a card, you're spending 4 mana to put 2 creatures into play from the top of your deck, like double Summoning Trap.
It's like draw 4, 2 of them are Black Lotus.
So yeah, and you can do it poly, you know. So the other big payoff, though, is not to be underestimated. Coveted Prize. Coveted Prize is 4 and a black demonic tutor, basically, right? Except it costs 1 less for each creature in your party, so you can pretty easily get this thing down to actual demonic tutor. You know, if you've got 3 people in your party. But what you really want to do is get the full party, because and obviously Coveted Prize can help pull the party together. But if you have the full party, you can go off. You just drop the 4th member of your party, whatever it is, and then you spend 1 mana. Coveted Prize immediately. Go get Squad Commander, which, because Coveted Prize has this bonus if you have a full party, it lets you play cards that cost 4 or less from it for free. So you get Squad Commander and play Squad Commander for free. So for 1 mana, you've gotten Squad Commander out of your deck, and you've played it, and Squad Commander scales based on the size of your party. So it's implicit that you'll just get 7/7 worth of stats from playing the Squad Commander for 1 mana. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, all your creatures get +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn. So you get that part right away. Plus you just have 7/7 that it's an implied attacking for 12 on the next turn.
Oh, that's such an awesome wrinkle. Like, I was thinking, like, this deck at first blush seemed to me like, okay, that's a cool thing you can also do. Right? That's kind of the sentence that was in my head. But, right, like, I feel like it's outclassed by the mono white deck. I feel like it's outclassed by the mono blue deck. It doesn't have Goldspan Dragon. But once you have the Coveted Prize into Squad Commander combo, it goes from being a deck that is just kind of like a somewhat clunky but then very explosive beatdown deck to also kind of a combo deck itself.
Totally. And it's got some grinding elements, too. The Acquisitions Expert, 2 for 1. Elder Fang Priest, 2 for 1. Herald, King of Skemfar, 2 for 1. And you've got that acceleration for, Tajir Paragon, 2 for 1. Tazri, obviously, card draw engine. But yeah, the last part of it... Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I think it's so cute that it has, like, 1 copy of Binding of the Old Gods. Right? Like,
yeah, it's part of your toolbox, but it actually hints at the sideboard that has an even bigger toolbox. Your sideboard has a second backup copy of both Binding the Old Gods and Squad Commander, but it also contains 1 copy of Toski, Bearer of Secrets, 1 copy of Questing Beast, 1 copy of Garruk Unleashed, 1 copy of Showdown of the Skalds. That's like a pretty diverse and powerful mix of all. It's not like you have to get 4s either. You can still go get, if you want to go get Run Afoul and make your opponent sacrifice a creature with flying, you can do that too.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can get whatever you want and then cast whatever you want that's the appropriate casting cost. They don't have to be the same card, right?
No, but the Run Afoul, I think, is actually worth pointing out, though, because Run Afoul is a card that's not really made any waves, right? It's just been kind of under the radar. It's like, oh, yeah, sure, I guess this is a thing you can do. But Run Afoul is particularly well-suited for fighting Goldspan Dragon because it doesn't proc the Goldspan Dragon's trigger.
Oh, that's awesome.
Unlike other edicts, they can't sacrifice the dwarf or whatever.
And it's an instant.
Or if it's a 1 mana instant. The price is right. That's just an excellent, excellent card under these circumstances. And it's not like it doesn't get its money in other spots. There's plenty of things you can do, whether you're hitting an Angel or you're hitting a Brazen Borrower even. It's not like you're not getting your mana's worth for 1 mana, right?
Yeah, this seems fantastic. I mean, not for nothing.
I think it's Yorion. Who doesn't have Yorion?
Well, not for nothing, if there's a Baneslayer Angel in play, like, this deck is not very good at killing it, and it's not very good at getting past it. So, I think that, having multiple copies of Run of Foul so you can just draw them, instead of having to tutor for them. Because you could tutor for Binding of the Old Gods, right? But I think that seems really good.
Totally. Binding the Old Gods also just helping ramp into a bigger Tazri plan to pull it all together. It's kind of a nice dimension.
Yeah, I like that. This deck is like its own little factory in the mid game, right? Just like sitting there chugging along. I like that. But the problem is, what would you do? What's your strategy against like any control deck? But I think like most importantly, like that mono white deck we were just looking at. If there's an Ugin in play on the other side of the battlefield, a deck whose main job is just to go wide with otherwise relatively, unimpressive stuff, seems like you would want to have a really strong backup plan against that.
Yep. And I think that it's tough if your plan is just try to grind when that's so many other people's plan. But I don't know. Hopefully you can get enough explosiveness out of the coveted prize, though.
Yeah, I think the squad commander would be a good solution if they don't want to all get haste or anything, right? No.
Yeah,
so
not in this deck.
That's not. It doesn't do it, right? Like if you're going to spend your time rebuilding, then they're just going to be like, oh, -2. It's not like you guys are very expensive.
So, what do you think of Coma, Cosmos Serpent's continued kind of just rise to glory throughout the format? Like there's a lot of decks, like on the 4th, on 2-4 of the Standard League, there's another copy of this Sultai deck that's just been going on and on, like winning all over the place, like Sultai Yorion, where it's basically the mirror Yorion deck, but with two key additions, which, and we talked about this strategy a little bit last week, but the Coma, Cosmos Serpent, and Binding of the Old Gods, the fact that it's actually kind of continued to succeed, is this just going to be the de facto control deck going forward?
This looks like
because like the counter Dragon deck's not really a control deck, right?
Well, I feel like you're talking about, for example, SWB 110's 5-0 list would be an example. Yeah. I think like decks like this thrive or are available to play at all as kind of a byproduct of everybody agreeing that they can, right? It's if people went
really. Isn't this deck so powerful?
It's powerful, yeah, but it's a little clunky, don't you think?
Why?
It has a lot of stuff that costs 4, 5, 8.
Dude, you got the smoothing of Omen of the Sea, Maze Mind Tome, the lots of 4-mana card draw, of course, but you've also got these cheap interaction: Cling to Dust, Eliminate, Essence Scatter, Heartless Act, Droid Disruption, Negate, Neutralize. You got a lot of early interaction: Blood Chief's Thirst, Extinction Event.
So if like you had the option, I mean, just straight up, you'd have the option of the mono red deck or the red white deck or this deck.
This.
No, there's just against each other, right? Not against the field.
Well, I don't know. I think I would just pick this.
Yeah, I guess Maze Mind Tome's good against beaters.
Besides, it's crazy not playing Yorion in this economy. Come on.
Yeah, but I think like, well, if you're going to play the mono white deck with even 3+1 Yorions, this deck would thrash that deck. Like same top end game. This one's got blue and black cards.
Yeah. It's that is the way with these big mana white decks sometimes, though. So I actually was kind of drawn to some of the stuff showing up in other power to formats as well. I don't know, man. Are there any other standard decks you wanted to hit on, or because there's actually also stuff in Pioneer already? Like, we talked about Modern with the Rise of Tybalt, of course, for however long that lasts.
So why don't we save that for upcoming episode, and then just maybe like finish out with the last Goldspan Dragon deck that we didn't talk about too much, which would be Temur.
We didn't even talk about Rakdos though.
Yeah,
but okay, yeah.
We also barely talked about Boros, right? So here's what I like about Temur. Like, I'm just looking at, for example, there's a lot of them, but Game Night's 5-0 list from the event on the 4th. If you start with a Cultivate or a Beanstalk Giant,
you get your Goldspan Dragon before other people do. If you have, that's with like just natural resources, right? You're not burning any treasure to get the Goldspan Dragon into play. If you got 5, you can attack with a Goldspan Dragon. You are already in ultimatum range at that point. Seems to me like in the abstract, like unless we're talking about like some weird trickery, best of one deck, this is like just the solo mission way to go. It's got the best thing that other people are doing, which is Goldspan Dragon. It's got the fastest Goldspan Dragon relative to other people playing kind of fair Goldspan Dragon decks.
And Magda.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. But the fact that you can just go Goldspan Dragon 1 attack straight into Genesis Ultimatum seems like that is a really exciting direction to go.
Okay, you ready for the big advancement that's just going to quantum leap this deck into the next tier?
Hit me.
Dude. So you already got 4 Beanstalk Giants in this Teamer deck, right?
Yeah.
So you got some mediocre stuff in here, like Glimpse of Freedom. Right. What if instead of Glimpse of Freedom, what if you just played Glimpse the Cosmos? Dude, your deck doesn't have Bone Crusher Giant yet. What if you just put those 4 Bone Crusher Giants from your sideboard into your main deck so you just had 8 Giants? And you just played Glimpse the Cosmos.
I mean, between those cards, like you just don't even need like Fire Prophecy, right? Like you're kind of getting all the stuff that you need.
And I don't know. I personally, you can play some amount of that stuff. I like Fire Prophecy. It's okay. But I think Fire Prophecy, it's not necessary. I personally would prefer to have a little bit less of the spot removal at 2. I'd rather have either 1 mana or Permission. I also think Into the Royal is kind of medium. It's okay in small numbers, I guess, but I'd rather just, try to just brute force people. Like instead of Fire Prophecy as your main removal interaction, just Bone Crusher Giant.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't know.
Wait, so
yeah, this seems awesome to me.
Like when you cast a Genesis Ultimatum, which you can do way ahead of schedule in this deck, a bunch of different ways, and you just flip an Ugin, which costs more than the Genesis Ultimatum, or a Shark Typhoon, which doesn't come out the front side that often. You just play those cards, right? Like they're just there. Yeah, I don't know how this.
Plus, dude, it's not like Bone Crusher Giant's the worst hit off a Genesis Ultimatum compared to Fire Prophecy.
No, I'm in. I think that's a better card than Fire Prophecy in the main deck. I just think that's a better card. I think Bone Crusher Giant is like a top 5 card in Standard, and I think Fire Prophecy is better suited generally for decks that need to move certain things into different zones, right? Like if you're playing like some sort of Pioneer deck that needs to get your Craterhoof Behemoth via a cheaty way, and you drew the Craterhoof Behemoth, Fire Prophecy. But if you're a regular person, I think that it's less good. I mean, Digging is always kind of good. You don't want to play 4 Goldspan Dragon here, right? Isn't it really good?
I don't know. I guess it's okay. I think a lot of expensive cards are really good, though. I want to play 4 Glimpse, 4 Bone Crusher Giant, and 4 Beanstalk Giant.
Yeah, but we can just get rid of Into the Royal. Mystical Dispute,
Dude,
love
you know what I want to do? I just want to Thrix people. When they attack me with their Goldspan Dragon, I just want to block with my Thrix, which is also a Giant. 4/5 Flying Flash. Plus, it makes your Ugin cost 1 less. Your Shatter Skull Smashing 1 less. Your Beanstalk Giant costs 1 less. So good.
Dude, why is there Underworld Ragehound in the sideboard?
Value. See you next week.
That's not value. Bye.
See you next week.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play Dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis please. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind. Trapped in a vault with nothing but time. Parents and my friends were the key to find. Magic gave me purpose and drive. The game